Good morning, everyone. Welcome on the Dawn Safari. I greet you to the tune of lions calling to the deep south of where I'm sitting, some rustling in the bushes from what may or may not be an elephant, and it's not warm this morning. As you can see, I am struggling to move my lips in the cold. Brent has kindly lent me one glove, so I have one warm hand and 5 fingers that are in fact not functioning at all. That is a crested francolin heralding the dawn. So we have Scott on the back today. My name is James. Brent and Phil are on the other vehicle, freezing. And in the nice warm control room we have Eugene and the sultry tones of Nicky Austin driving things and making the big decisions. Remember that we love your contributions. Please send us your comments and your questions to the hashtag Safari Live or questions@wildearth.tv. Our plan this morning is we had the wild dogs last night. They're off in the north. Brent is up in that area, so he'll check for them. We've come to the deep south hoping to find some form of lion tracks perhaps. We have just heard them calling. I'm not sure if you would have picked them up or not, but they were calling probably well south of our boundary. They might be moving, they might be coming forward, so we might be lucky with them. Otherwise we're going to see what we can see. Just going to try and follow up on that rustling noise that was in the bushes just here, and we may come up with something. We may come up with nothing but cold air, but it is promising a very beautiful dawn. It's very crisp. Crisp is a euphemism for Baltically cold, but the sun is about to peep over the horizon, and so we're hoping for some warmth a bit later. It is a really beautiful morning. Here we go. Welcome to the morning game drive. Wherever you are in the world. And just to reiterate to you, you are on a live safari. That means that no one is editing. You are seeing this probably, I think there's a brief delay of about 9 seconds after we seeing it, which is not too bad. There's something moving in here. Be a buffalo through there. We'll just go and have a quick look at him, see how he's enjoying the dawn. It's a 6 degrees Celsius here. For those living in the 19th century, that means it's about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So it wasn't an elephant that I heard, but a buffalo. I was only off by about 4,200 kilograms. I don't know what sort of view we're going to get of these old boys as they lurk here in the bush. Maybe a little bit better through here. How's that, Scott? That's perfect. Okay. We'll just stop here briefly. I'll probably be doing quite a lot of stopping until the sun has warmed the air. He's lost his horn, that old boy. So these are the buffaloes that are often found around Treehouse Dam, and they're obviously very happy to have made it through the night without the attentions of too many lions. It's quite an interesting relationship between size and cold. The larger you are, or the greater your surface area to body mass ratio. Now, I mean, for my brain to be thinking on that level at this kind of time of the morning is a testament to the power of the coffee I drank. But basically, the bigger you are, so the larger your surface area to body mass ratio is, the more easy you find it to maintain heat, but also the more difficult you find it to lose heat. So something like a buffalo or an elephant or a rhino will find it not too hard to stay warm. That's why the really big animals don't even have any fur. So they warm up, their physiologies warm up their bodies. But the opposite is true then when it gets very hot. They struggle to lose heat, which is why they spend a lot of time wallowing in the mud or throwing water on themselves, and why they don't have any fur. Now, if you think of a little mouse or a bushveld gerbil, one of which is living in our kitchen at home. In fact, I think there are probably about 25 of them living in the kitchen at home. They really struggle with maintaining body heat. So they have a hugely fast metabolism that will build a lot of heat quickly when it's cold, and they'll rush around when it's cold. They also have to be in kind of warm nests with each other when it's cold. I'm just going to sneak a little bit forward there, Scott. There's one coming onto the road.
Okay.
And then when it's the other strategy for when it's cold, if you think of something like a bush baby, they go into a sort of torpor where they can actually allow the body temperature to drop. They can allow the temperature of the body to drop significantly below the sort of standard 37 degrees. And that saves a lot of energy. So if you're a little mouse or something like that, you're using a huge amount of energy to maintain your body temperature in the cold like this. But obviously very easy when it's hot for you to lose heat. These big old boys. I've parked Scott at an angle, so he's going to have to... There we go, he's alright. So you can see that the larger an animal gets, the more sparse its fur will be. Certainly in conditions where it's not cold, or particularly cold. It obviously doesn't apply in the northern climes or higher latitudes where things like polar bears and Kodiak bears have to survive in extremely cold conditions. You can see that buffalo there eating some extremely dry grass. And buffalo are very lucky in that they have the ability to consume the driest, most moribund material, you know, what you and I might refer to as straw, as long as they have sufficient water for their guts to process it. Very efficient ruminant digestive systems they have. And again, it always amazes me the strength of the tongues that animals have out here. That if you watch that buffalo, he's wrapping his tongue around the leaves and then pulling them out the ground. I mean, were you to wrap your hands around those bushes, they'd eventually be cut to pieces. And likewise, if you were to wrap your tongue around one of those grass stalks, you'd be bleeding fairly quickly. Your breakfast wouldn't taste nearly as good as his does. There you can hear the oxpeckers. So the oxpeckers will have been nesting in their tree holes for the night, cozy and warm, and now they've come out, and you can hear them calling. It's a psh, 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 and they've come to find the buffalo so that they can start finding some ticks to eat. Delicious to eat a tick in the morning if you're an oxpecker, not so much if you're a human being. we're just going to sit here a little bit longer. I really quite enjoy the buffalo, and also because the lions are calling not too far south of here. I mean, they may call again. There are the oxpeckers. It's quite nice when you're on a morning like this, when your host is also a hot water bottle. I'm sure the oxpeckers are flattening their bellies against the warmth of the buffalo skin. Beautiful shot of one here. Look at that fellow. Hundreds of oxpeckers are now filling the skies and going to land on all of the buffalo and impala and kudu and rhino and other animals that frequent the area, but not on elephants for some reason. We're not sure why. We've just got Brent hollering at me on the radio. I'm just going to excuse myself briefly. Go ahead, Brent. Go ahead, Brent. You can see where the oxpeckers have taken the hair off under his eyes, probably because the ticks like to go towards any sort of opening, be it an eye, a bottom, a nose. So they'll congregate under the eyes or in the soft parts of the body, and that's where the oxpeckers have now cleaned off that flesh. Or not flesh, they've cleaned off the hair. Right. Okay, I think we're going to turn around now, gently, and head slowly into the rising sun. Oh, beautiful. Let's just get you a picture of that. Scott is behind us. We have some magnificent lights of which Van Gogh have delighted in. Look at that sun. So while we're enjoying the rising sun, we're going to cross over to Brent. Brent is dressed in his grandfather's down jacket, so he has swelled to twice the size that he was yesterday. Let's see what he's finding, and we're going to carry on down the road here. Enjoy.
Morning everyone, my name's Brent. I got full on camera from a very cold Juma private game reserve this morning. It's about 6 degrees, which is 47 Fahrenheit, and for me that's about as close to freezing as I like to get. As you can see, I'm very much wrapped up. I have even got a hot water bottle. I really don't like being cold, but Good news is we've got some leopard tracks that we've been following here. We're around Impala Plains on the border of Djuma and Arathusa, just trying to figure out which way the leopard is going at the moment. I'm going to go a little bit further down the road, but there's been a lot of tracks up and down, so it's quite difficult to see. But the most fresh tracks I have are heading sort of west down this long road, but there's been tracks on and off. There's also been tracks of a male leopard here, but those look like they're a bit earlier in the day. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, we are on a very chilly live African safari, and we move between Djuma and Arathusa Private Game Reserve, and at the moment we are tracking a female leopard. In this area, for those regular viewers, more than likely shadow. But it is a beautifully still morning. Those tracks we had just now, there we go, she's come this way again, are very nice and fresh. Let's keep checking. So I think they cross, there we go, across to the other side of the road. Just trying to make sure which way she goes, whether she stays or crosses into Djuma or goes into Arathusa. Got her tracks here again. See if I can get Phil to show them to you. I think it's shadow and cut now, just judging from the two sets of tracks I can see. SIndile. So if we have a look at those ones right on the edge of the road there, you can see she's been walking there, and then there's a second set in the middle of the road. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to show you from here, which is a similar size, but it does look a little bigger possibly. So we're on the right track. Now there's a single set of tracks heading back the opposite direction, so it is possible that she might have made a kill somewhere and then has gone back to fetch SIndile, the young male who's about 8 months old, and taken him back there. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we are on the trail. Walking that side. Okay. Come on, leopards. So those lion tracks that Scotty followed yesterday, those are the ones that crossed. Still got... We don't have our tracks now. Let's have a quick look on the side. They're still there, very faint, but I've still got them. So it is a beautiful morning. I think it's going to be a stunning day. Not a breath of wind at the moment, which we're quite thankful for, being quite chilly. And let me just, for those of you who might be new, apart from, oh, I have just got hyena tracks now. Let me just make sure she is not underneath the hyena tracks. We are interactive, so you can ask us questions about what we're doing, and you can do this via email, and the email address is questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLive if you're on Twitter. So tracks are still there, so we're going to keep following and see what's going on. There are quite a lot of hyena tracks as well. Her tracks look like they're a bit earlier in the day, in the evening. currently 2 hyenas that have been walking here as well. One has been running. And I just... Sometimes when the leopards walk up a harder part of the road, because they're so light, the tracks are a little bit more difficult to see. But I can't see any tracks at the moment, so I'm just going to go very slowly. I'm going to check to this dip here, and if we don't find any tracks there, then I'll go back extra carefully and check back towards where I had the last track. Also, while we're going very slowly like this, we're listening to see if anything might spot her for alarm calls. No tracks here. I'm going to go back to check whether she's gone north or south from the road. Just find a decent spot to make my turn. Oh, what was that I just spotted? That's the hyenas again. Just above the horizon now. We had the tracks was on top of this ridge up here. And we got a little bit quicker get back there. I'm going to jump off the vehicle, have a quick look around the front of the vehicle to see if I can see which way she's crossed. Sunrise Safari. Julie from Milwaukee says, were there lions calling at the start of drive? She thinks she could hear some. Julie, I didn't hear, but it's quite possible. I'm quite a long way away from where the Juma camp is at the moment. I'm on our western boundary, and that is closer to the eastern section of the reserve. But I've got those leopard tracks crossing the road here. I saw them. There they are. So I'm just going to stop here for a second, and you can have a look there, and they're between the hyena tracks. So that's what makes it a bit difficult. Now I've got to sort of unwrap myself from hot water bottles and blankets and what. Let me just... One thing about these gloves, it does make using the fingers a little bit more difficult, but the warmth they provide is a definite worthwhile loss of dexterity for me. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick walk where you guys can see where they went. You can see there's the leopard track. Can you see these ones? Or do you want me to go a bit further?
Show it to me.
So there's the leopard track. There, smaller, you can see the 3 little lobes, and there's the hyena. So, and you can see the hyena tracks a bit sharper, so from a bit earlier, later, so more fresh than the leopard. But the second set of leopard tracks is out on the other side of the road. Just going to see, this is where I think they left the road. So I'll be back shortly. me there for a second. What happened is she's actually still on the road, but she's walked on this very hard, compacted in the side of the road, so when we're driving it's a little bit too fast to see the tracks. They're just such faint little scratches, but we're back on them now. Now I need to try and get back into my bubble. Put my ears back in. Notice with great delight that R2-D2 has left us. We no longer have to now it's just in my ear, which is far more pleasant. So for those who might be a bit new, R2-D2 was our new radio system, and they hadn't managed to find a way to put it in our ear yet, and every time someone spoke or you pushed a button, because it was a digital system, it would make a lot of noises that sounded like R2-D2 from Star Wars. Andrew is the one who named it R2-D2. We're going to keep on these tracks, and we're going to cross across to Commander Bond to see what he's been up to for the last little while, and we'll be back with you a little later, and hopefully we'll have found one or two leopards, or a lion, or even an impala. But over to Commander Bond.
Welcome back everyone to Jiga, where Scott and I are basking like two dwarf mongoose, well actually more like one dwarf mongoose and a white-tailed mongoose in the sun. It's the most beautifully crisp sunrise. I believe Brent has been showing you some crisp tracks, so there's a lot of crispness about the morning. We have come onto the eastern boundary, and there were no lion tracks coming across from the south. So we're going to continue up here towards Buffelshoek Hook Waterhole and see what we can find there. It's the most beautiful morning. So despite the cold, I'm feeling very inspired by the natural wonder of the wilderness around us. Remember that we're sitting in 3.5 million hectares of contiguous wildlife area. That's bigger than, it's twice the size of Lebanon. It's about a third bigger than Israel and Wales. There's a small country in Africa called Djibouti, which wouldn't even fit into this bottom half. So it's a massive part of the world. Giant wilderness. As I was saying yesterday, a lot of this land we have for wildlife mainly because farmers and cattle herders and all sorts of people and miners have all tried their hand at making it work in a commercial way. But there's some elephants up ahead on the road. I'm just going to speed up a little bit, coming into Djuma, which is exciting. So most of this land has been tried for various commercial things, and that's why we have it for wildlife, because it's turned out to be hopeless for commercial use, which is wonderful for us. And one elephant walking across the road there. There we go, a little baby in front. Faces are now turning frostbite if we drive at this speed. There we go. Oh, that's beautiful morning sight. Little breeding herd of elephants feeding along this fire break where it's a bit clearer, easier to move, possibly a bit warmer in the sun. But like I say, oh, there's some tiny little ones there. I'm going to stop here a little while, just while they're getting used to us. I think this is the same herd that we had in this area the other day. The two young cows spending more time away, those are the two in front of us, and then the little babies staying with their mothers in front. All right, we're going to sneak forward slowly, just watching their behavior carefully. It's just so pleasant to be with elephants when they're unaffected by our presence. So, I want to be as slow and careful as possible so that they feel as comfortable as possible. The little ones giving us the eye up front. Up front is running around, sort of playful, warming up. So she's a little bit awkward around us. I'm just going to stop and let her get used to us. There we go. She's watching us quite carefully. But now she's relaxed. She seems to be lactating as well. I'm not sure which one of these would be her baby, but there are a few little ones off to the right of your picture now in the quite thick bush. Oh, the sounds of the dawn are just fantastic. Got birds calling all over, drongos, crombecs, firefinches, doves. And the slow rustle of the vegetation as the elephants move through. You can hear them snapping off bits of grass and rustling through the trees as we move. I'm going to sneak forward a bit more. There's a couple of others further forward that are a bit more in the light. It's quite a big herd. In fact, it's not the same one we saw 2 days ago. Front of us. And again, we're just going to approach very slowly and let them get used to us. The last thing we want is for them to feel uncomfortable. I always feel very sad when they don't feel comfortable with us. I'm just going to stop here. So one or two of them have stopped feeding now, just to listen to what we want and watch us. And now they've started again. What I don't want to do is drive a wedge between them. So we could have driven right up, close, and they may not have reacted, but now they're still in visual and easy contact with each other, and we're not affecting them. Seems to be suckling, the little one there. You can see just bigger than her mother's belly, so probably about 14 to 18 months old. Twitter, thank you for your dawn question. It's a good one. How long do baby elephants take to get used to the vehicles? The answer is that they will take their cues almost entirely from the adults. So if the adults are relaxed, then the babies will tend to be relaxed. When they're little and they're sort of 2 and 3 years old, it's very funny. Sometimes they try their luck with us and they charge the vehicles and sort of almost play with them. But it's not in any way a sort of aggressive behavior. What they're doing is just sort of being boisterous youngsters. So they will take their cue from the adults, especially from the matriarch. If she's okay, just about everyone will be okay. We'll sneak a little bit further forward. There's one breaking a tree, I'm sure you can hear. Oh no, I wish you could feel the sun. It's just come onto our faces. It's starting to warm us up. See if I can get to a position where you can see looks like a big cow in front breaking some grass. No, I don't want to, I think I'm going to make it too much of an effect, so we're going to stop here for a little while. Look at the little one coming, that tiny little thing. And you can see the hair on his head, he's still so small. So that little one's probably just under a year old. And as you can see, when he runs, he or she runs, curls the trunk up because it's totally uncoordinated at this stage of life. I think this is the old matriarch behind here. I'll get a picture of her now. What she's doing, there's no question that she is watching us. She wants to know what we're up to. You can see how her left ear is ceased to be as upright as it might be, and it's really been torn by thorns and a life hard lived. And so I think she's probably the oldest. She's not the biggest cow though. There's one up front that seems to be a lot larger. But also you can see she's probably pregnant from the size of her belly there. That protuberance on the side of her. There we go, she's okay. She's not entirely happy. She's not exactly happy with us. I'm just going to let her carry on like she is for now. Keep my eye on her. But I think if we keep quiet, she should be okay. So I'm not going to say anything for the next little while. Unlikely that she's pregnant with a little one like that, but it's not impossible. Isn't that just fantastic to see? I have seen this herd before, but a long way from here. I recognize that little one. He's got a sort of unusually creased skin, and he does like to give the vehicles a bit of a rev when he comes past. Isn't that sweet? Now, she's definitely an old cow. And I wonder if she hasn't had some experience in sort of the distant past where, she would have been part of the Kruger elephant population that was subjected to the culling before 1996. So she will retain some of that memory, but the more and more time she spends with us, the less and less she'll feel threatened by us. There. Now, the other day I mentioned how they love those teak trees and how they'll feed them through the molars and pull the bark off, or strip the bark, and that's exactly what that cow's doing there. I'm just going to sneak a little bit forward now. We've got some others a bit closer to the road. I really don't want to go herring into the bush after them because they've been so confiding to us. So we're just going to sneak forward. That cow who we had on the road and who was watching us quite carefully there is still listening very carefully to what we're doing. Two up front in front of us. Tuskless cow here. I'm just going to stop here. The noise of the vehicle is making them a little bit uneasy. And the cow in front of us seems to be there, behind the bush that Scott's focusing on. Seems to be tuskless. That's very interesting. That can be genetic. They could have broken off, but the fact that there isn't even a stump there tells me that she never had tusks. Obviously, one of the things you can't perceive from where you're sitting now, or maybe you can, is the sort of the atmosphere of the sighting, where there's a slight tension in the air from this cow. She's very clearly still watching us quite carefully, wants to know what we're about, wants to make sure that we're not a threat. So she's sort of feeding and sort of listening. Elephants will often pretend to feed if they're uneasy, a bit like us when we kind of pretend to have a drink or drink out of an empty glass when we're in an awkward social situation. Judy in Cave Creek, which I think is in Arizona, welcome and thank you for your question. You want to know if the babies are ever in danger from the bulls during the mating season. There are two aspects to this question. The first is that there's no set mating or breeding season. They'll breed throughout the year, elephants, just depending on when the cows come into estrus. And the bulls are generally pretty placid with the calves. I've certainly not read of or heard of any incidences where a bull has created any situation of infanticide. So I think that may have quite a lot to do with how protective the cows are, but also just with the fact that it doesn't seem to confer any advantage on the bulls. So they will generally be pretty tolerant of the youngsters. You can see her feeding on the bark now, and as it gets drier and drier, so the elephants will start to eat on the bark of the trees. They'll pull the cambium layer off. back a little and just see if we can't see some of the others.
Good idea.
We're just going to go back a little bit. Now that tuskless cow is very upset about something in her life. Not sure what. Sometimes the tuskless animals can be a little bit more easily threatened or easily upset. A bit like just because they feel a little bit more vulnerable. Tuskless cow is very unhappy. She's followed us all the way down the road, but now she's calming again, and she was rumbling as she came down. But everybody else is absolutely fine with us. In fact, that elephant that Scott's filming has just reacted to the cow, to the tuskless cow. She wasn't reacting to us at all. Sort of turned in anger towards the much bigger tuskless cow. I must tell you, to say tuskless in this temperature is not easy. How beautifully they just disappear into the bush. Curious one, you have asked an interesting question. You've asked, if all the tusked elephants are killed, and I'm assuming you mean hunted, so for the big ivory, will evolution not favor the tuskless cows? And the answer in a very basic sense is yes, it would. If having a tusk confers a disadvantage on you because you're more likely to be shot by some bloodthirsty hunter, then absolutely having no tusks will confer an advantage on you. And if having no tusks is part of your genetic makeup, then you will be more successful in at leaving offspring than a tusked animal. So that's quite a good question. It's quite a nice example. Certainly the ivory, or the size of the ivory in this area, apparently is much smaller than it was sort of 120 years ago. When the Kruger Park was first promulgated. That was the first, I think, instance of the Sabi Game Reserve was promulgated in 1898. And at that time, if I'm not mistaken, there were only 8 elephants left in this area. Now, I mean, the counts would have been very inaccurate at that time, but they certainly weren't the same number that they are now. And that's because they've been hunted out for their ivory. And certainly you don't find enormous ivory in the Kruger Park now, but on a very odd occasion. I think we're going to leave these elephants just disappearing quietly into the bush. I don't want to follow them in there. You can hear those Franklin's alarm calling. That may be because the elephants disturbed them. So that was wonderful, wasn't it? A really nice, peaceful, glorious way to start the morning, especially as we were able to stand still in the sun, which has made Scott and I infinitely more cheerful. And we're going to carry on up here towards Buffelshoek Waterhole and see what's over there. And then I think Brent is hot on the trail of something or other, and we'll cross to him eventually. We don't want to cross to him just yet, because I'm sure the camera is shaking horribly, and we don't want you nauseous on dawn game drive. The cold air has made for a particularly sort of sharp lines in the clouds and piercing blue in the sky. Like these elephants have fed all the way down the road here. They've come along this clearing. It's what we call a fire break, so the bush has been cleared off the sides of the roads, and it's quite nice for them to move in an area like this. Just gonna, Scott, I'm just gonna go and fetch that little piece of teak there. Stand by one, everybody. Coming back now. Right, so this is a piece of round leaf teak or Pterocarpus rotundifolius. Now the elephant has got a molar, an adult bull elephant's molar is about that big, and it sits in the back of the mouth, obviously. Where else would it be? And what they do is they pull these stalks out of the ground like this, and then they bite them, and they feed them through the mouth. And they come out cleaned of the bark. And that bark, I mean, this has recently been done, it's still wet. That bark produces the nutrition that they want. And we're just going to give this a little taste to see if it's as delicious as the elephants say it is. It's better than the knob thorn, less tannin than the knob thorn. I probably wouldn't substitute it for my bacon and eggs. But definitely you can taste a sort of a sugary, mild vitamin taste. So there's probably some good nutrition in there. And like I said, I have said before, these bushes will become enormous trees from which you can make furniture in the absence of elephants. But where there are elephants around, they maintain them at this sort of low height, where the stalks are perfect for them to pick out and chew through, like I've just showed you. Just climb in and recover myself with this blanket. Oh, that's very nice. Right, on we go. I better plug myself in. was hoping for a bit of heat coming out of it. You can warm your hands quite nicely on the end of a termite mound. Mountains there. Just going to come back a little bit. Scott can get a good picture.
That's perfect.
You must shout if you get sick of me continually referring to the mountains, but those are just beautiful there. The haze below the mountains there comes from, and there are 9 million people living on the borders of the Kruger National Park in rural villages. I mean, that sounds like a lot, but, you know, the Kruger Park is an enormous expanse of land, so it's not that much. But they're living in rural villages where heating largely comes from wood fires or coal, and that's that haze that you can see at the base of the mountains. Just stunning. A gentle breeze in the air, pretty chilly one. But that's why the air is so crisp and perfect this morning. Right, we'll carry on a little. Leopard or lion tracks this morning on these roads. It's always good to check the boundaries, especially when we've had the dogs around. They can cover such huge distances, and they may have crossed in and out of the reserve 3 or 4 times last night, but we're not sure. The next road, not this one. So we're now at pretty much the northeast corner of Djuma, and we're driving through a little field here of those Pterocarpus rotundifolius trees, or the roundleaf teak, where the elephants have maintained them in this sort of dwarf state, if you like. Almost like they're farming themselves a source of winter food. Scott, is that tire still hard?
No, that's a problem.
Yeah. All right, I thought the vehicle felt a bit funny. We've burst a tire, so I think we're going to have to leave you. If we can, and try and change the tire. While we wait for Brent to become available, we'll just try and find something interesting to talk about where we are sitting now. What can we find? I'm going to try and pick some thorns. Stand by. I'll be back shortly. I'm not copying that.
We should do a crunchy apple leaf.
Crunchy apple leaf we could do. There's an apple leaf.
To the left.
To the left. Ah, there we go. not very tall, you see. I think I've been driving on that tire for some time, I'm afraid. So this is the apple leaf tree, or the rain tree, Phalaenoptera violacea. And if you listen carefully, I'm going to crunch it right into the microphone. You'll hear why it's called the apple leaf. Huh? Now apparently that's supposed to sound a bit like crunching into a bright green Granny Smith apple. It doesn't taste like a Granny Smith apple. I don't think it sounds like that either. But, you know, we have to come up with names. The more interesting name is actually the rain tree. And it's called the rain tree not because it is a predicator of rain, but because in it, the larvae of an insect called a scale insect lives. And what the insect does, it's not a scale insect, I've lost it for a moment, but it'll come back to me. What this animal does is it drills into the sap of the branch here, of these young branches, and drinks it. And because there's so much water in it, it's got to filter out a lot of water in order to get the nutrition that it needs. And it forms this sort of foamy nest around it. And that foamy nest is continually being renewed, and so bits of it keep dropping off and dropping off and dropping off onto the ground. And they particularly like this tree, and that's why it's called the rain tree, which is quite interesting. Right, around we go. See what else we can find in this vicinity. Scott, will you keep me posted on the radio?
I'm not hearing it too well, but I'll try my best.
Ooh. Not sure if you can hear that. That's Kudu alarm calling. It would be lovely to drive there. Unfortunately, that's not possible. Beginning to wonder if my friend Brent is still around. So this is the thorn of Acacia exuvialis, or the flaky thorn, and inside it is a very nutritious pith that insects like this slender ant like to eat. So what they do is they drill in here and they lay their eggs, and then the larva will grow up eating this pith. And if they have been drilled into, they swell. The ant injects some form of hormone into the plant, and the thorns swell and create more of the pith, and that's what the larva eats. Naturally, on this one, there isn't anything. I will, for the sake of your edification, sacrifice my taste buds further to the thorns, and tell you that a slender ant doesn't really have a particularly sophisticated palate, I don't think. Probably be best for you to cross to Brent now, but I'm not sure why that isn't happening. We are going to find something
Maybe just
else.
double check with Nikki, because like I said, I'm not sharing.
We might not be live. FC, do you copy?
I do copy. Do you copy me?
Yeah, I've had to pull you out of the... Are we live?
Yes, you are, but we need a...
Okay, we are live. That's good to know. Nice to have you with us We're experiencing a little few technological difficulties here. That is not surprising. We are in the deep bush, 3.5 million hectares, not a lot of technical stores in the area, and so I'm sure Eugene is rushing around frantically trying to fix whatever the problem is. I'm not hearing a great deal at the moment. I'm going to, will you excuse me, I'm going to pull out the, you're going to have to hear the microphone, I'm afraid, because we're not hearing otherwise.
Brent, we need to link to Brent.
Right, there we go. We're going to link to Brent now. I think he's chasing a whole lot of leopards, which is very exciting, and so we're going to go across to him immediately.
Welcome back, guys. As I said, we were tracking Shadow under a cub earlier, and Shadow's tracks veered off, heading more west and out of our traverse area, and we passed another vehicle from Arathusa, and he said there were lion tracks crossing into our side, so I went quickly to look at the lion tracks, and then we hadn't even gone 5 minutes, and Sean called me back and said, oh no, with Shadow's cubs just popped up on the road behind you. So here we are, we're with SIndile, that 8-month-old, about 8.5 now, month-old male leopard cub, and Shadow is his mother. For those of you who are new viewers, you are live on an African safari, sitting on the back of my game drive vehicle, looking at an 8-month-old leopard cub that is named SIndile. So quite often, his mother will leave him, and then in an area while she goes off to hunt, because at this age he can be quite a hindrance on the hunts and chase away the animals that she's trying to catch. He will do quite a lot of little hunts by himself while he's away from his mother, squirrels and dwarf mongoose and maybe franklin or guinea fowl, and all that's honing his hunting skills for when he becomes independent. Isn't that wonderful? Such beautiful morning light, sitting on top of the termite mound. So that trick is just me taking a few pictures. Looks like a very, very comfortable young leopard, the way he's lying at the moment. So while he's away from his mother, he will adventure at this age, not too far from where he's been left, but he definitely will adventure up to a kilometre away from where he was originally left, but will normally move back into that area. But from the tracks we found this morning, I would say he was only left in this area either last night or early this morning. So I'm just trying to listen carefully, see if there's anything else around, possibly if his mother was moving back into the area, but I don't think so. I think she's gone off hunting. We had her tracks probably about 500 meters from here, heading sort of northwest. And I say it's quite nice, hey Phil, to stop and actually look at something so we're not freezing and moving.
Lovely. It's running around.
You can see that white tip to the tail there. And that is a following mechanism in leopards. They're able to, especially with female leopards, so the youngsters are able to follow the mother through thick bush. It stands out incredibly because if you're directly behind a leopard, the base on the bottom of that is so much whiter than the rest, and it doesn't have those wonderful rosettes to break up the line. He's smelling something. And here a grey go-away bird. I think has just spotted him on top of that termite mound. Claimed to go away. Go away. Wonderful morning light on his face. So, as I said, if you are new, we are live and we are interactive, so you are able to ask us questions about what we're seeing in the bush, and you can do that by emailing us at questions@wildearth.tv, or you can just use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. When I was off the vehicle tracking, I noticed that I draw a line behind the track with my boot in the sand, and there's a reason for this. It's an old habit from when I've been tracking with trackers, and when you're both walking and looking for tracks, it's just to let the other person know where the track is. So if you lose a track and you're trying to figure out where it is, you just sort of draw a line with your foot below the last track, and then you do that, and that's to make sure that the other person you're working with knows that you're still on the tracks and you haven't lost the tracks, so they don't have to start checking somewhere else. Quite often if you work tracking as a pair, two of you will check different paths or different areas, and quite often if you notice, leopard and lion will meander a bit across the roads, and that's so the tracks will move from side to side. And so I just mark the last track with my foot, and that is the area where she split from the track split between the cub and the adult, between SIndile and Shadow carried on west, and his tracks stayed in that area. So we would have been coming back here later to have a look as well, because we know he would have been left in this area more or less. So I hope that explains my strange habit of drawing lines in the sand.
Do the cats lengthen in winter? Oh, that's David in Michigan. Sorry. David in Michigan, do cats lengthen in winter?
Morning, David from Michigan. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. David would like to know, do the cat's fur lengthen in winter? David, it'll get a little bit thicker, and nothing noticeable in the cold months. And I mean, as I say, our cold months here are not really cold like the Northern Hemisphere. Or the Arctic and Antarctic. I think it's very seldom we'll even get frost. This morning is particularly cold at about, 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, 47 Fahrenheit. So it doesn't often get too much colder than that. It's normally a little bit warmer. So there isn't a real need, like in the northern climes, for a noticeable thickening of the cat's fur in this area. Probably, since he's been left, he's done a little bit of exploring around the area. He might do some more exploring because it is a cool morning, but he's probably been exploring for a while, and now he's resting on the termite mound. Hi Rameh, welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Rameh would like to know, were there lions nearby? Well, the tracks we had, Rameh, were probably about 800-900 meters to the north of us, and those tracks cross straight through the top of Djuma and into Buffelshoek. So, relatively close by, but not right here. He does seem to have quite an attitude to him, this young male, almost nonchalant. Very beautiful young boy. Anna-Marie, who's tweeting us this morning. Anna-Marie says it seems that Shadow spends quite a lot of time away from SIndile. Not more than other leopard females would from their cubs at this age. I mean, he's big enough that he can look after himself, and he's adept at climbing trees and stuff. If another predator had to come into the area, it looks like he's going to get moving. Oh, a little stretch and a little yawn. There's a big stretch coming. So Anna-Marie, I think he might just be moving around to catch more of the sun on the other side of the termite mound and do a bit of grooming. Anna-Marie, we'll discuss how long female leopards tend to stay away from their offspring in a second. I'm just going to reposition so we can get a slightly better view. Oh, that is quite nice there. Just look at him while he's popping his head up over there. But we'll see if we can get around to see grooming. Asking for a closer zoom. Unfortunately, we were at max zoom there. We'd obviously, with the young leopard and not being with his mother, we're not going to push how close we go too much. But we will try to get you a little bit closer now, folks. We just knocked there. Morning, Steve. Thanks very much. I was tracking them for a long time this morning. Yeah, they came from all the way down near Zebra Drive. Oh, yeah. Both of their tracks were down the road. Their mother went down on Fabric. And then onto Sibambili. I know, I saw. Are you moving on? No, I'm just trying to reposition quickly. Come and pass through. Okay, are you sure? I'm very good distance there. Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Yes, we can turn and move in very small places. Yeah, I'll go around the other side of that Sisyphus. Thanks, Sips. Sorry guys, just gonna sneak past you. Is that okay? There we go. So we've just moved around so we can see where he is. So Anne-Marie, that's what you were asking about earlier. You said Shadow seems to spend a lot of time away from SIndile. That is not unusual for a leopard with a cub of this age. Oh, sound! I heard something in the grass. I think it's a Franklin scurrying around in the leaf litter. Oh, it's a tired kitty. But Anna-Marie, so if at this age he can survive quite a few days, 5 days, 6 days without food, and she has to provide, so having him around or being around him a lot of the time would be very difficult for her to hunt and provide, so she has to leave him alone, and this is to ensure she is able to hunt. He is a very big distraction and probably gets very excited when there's something to chase and hunt, and he'll often make a hash of those hunts. And you can see, even though he's sleeping like that now, watch his ears, he's still listening to what's going on, and hopefully he would hear before another predator would approach. Morning, Siberia, one of our zoomies. Siberia would like to know, how does the mother leopard tell the cub to stay without the cub following? Well, she'll hiss and growl and get a little bit aggressive with it, and that's how she'll tell it to stay. And when she comes into an area to find it again, she will chuff and give a low contact call, which is the contact call is a very sort of ow, ow. I don't want to do it too loud, it might confuse him. Ow, 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 like that. Or the chuffing, which is even softer. What I'll do is when we do leave this guy, because there are quite a few vehicles who are making their way into the area, so we are going to have to give some of the other vehicles a chance just now, but once we move out, I will do that leopard contact call, my bad attempt at it, and also the chuffing. I don't want to do it while we're this close, it might confuse the young male. Jean from Los Angeles. Jean was wondering whether this leopard was sitting on a termite mound, and does that termite mound put out heat? He is sitting on a termite mound. I don't think this is an active termite mound, so I don't think there's any heat coming up from it. You see all the grass, and I just think he's using it because it's a slightly elevated position, which gives him a better view if there is another predator or anything coming in his direction. Sorry, I was just going to use the game drive channel for a second. How many stations are standing by for this position of Shadows Montan? Thanks very much. Oh, good news. It doesn't look like there are any vehicles standing by. There were a bit earlier, but now there are none, so we can sit here for quite a while. Even though he's not doing anything, it's wonderful to be able to sit this close to a young male leopard. Amanda from Pittsburgh. Go the Penguins. Welcome on Sunrise Safari, Amanda. Amanda would like to know what age a leopard cub stops feeding off its mother. Now, I'm assuming, Amanda, you mean when he stops taking kills from his mother. Well, Amanda, it varies depending on individual leopards and also on the sex of the leopards. Females generally become independent from their mothers at a much younger age. I've seen females come independent at 9-10 months, so not much older than this leopard is at the moment. But males generally will hang around for about 18 months to 24 months, but normally the females will start pushing them off anything from around 15-16 months. But I have seen male leopards who've stayed with their mum for nearly 2.5 years, so it all depends on the individual, and it'll be interesting to see as we watch this guy and whether he's going to be one of the ones who really doesn't want to leave his mommy, a real mommy's boy, or one of the ones that becomes independent quite quickly. He's just going to be sitting there patiently waiting for his mother to return. Hopefully with the news of a fresh meat. Morning, Kim from Kansas City. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Kim. Kim would like to know, how old would this leopard be before he made his first kill? Kim, I'm pretty confident he's made his first kill already. It will be something small, a lizard, a dwarf mongoose, a tree squirrel, maybe a francolin, or a monitor lizard. But at this age, I'm pretty sure he's probably killed something already. He might even, around now is probably the time when they might possibly, not always, make their first sort of major kill, sort of an antelope. I have seen a young female of about this age take down an adult female impala, which is very impressive, because remember, a female leopard of 8 months is still quite a bit smaller than this guy, and he's by no means massive at the moment. Interesting with leopards, weaning off mother's milk starts quite early. The earliest recorded that I've heard of is 42 days. The mother's already started trying to wean the cub by regurgitating meat, and so at about a month they're already starting to be weaned. generally, that is a sort of a out of the ordinary example. Normally weaning starts at around 3 to 4 months. Looks like he's had a busy playtime while his mom's been away, and he's very tired now. Brenda from Virginia. Brenda would like to know about SIndile's spot pattern. How many does he have? She says she counted 5 on his right side. Brenda, as far as I can remember, he's got a 3-3 spot pattern, and I'll show it to you now. Yes, Brenda, I think he's definitely a 3-3 spot pattern. What we'll do is I'll show you, if we have a look at my camera lens here, we can show you what I mean and how that spot pattern is used to identify the different leopards. So there we go, Brenda. Let me just let me know when you can see, if I need to move the screen at all to get rid of glare. Okay, let me try it over here. There we go. So let me just go a bit closer in. So Brenda, you might have counted these up here. We don't normally count those. Let me just move this, is in the way. There we go. So there is the last line of whiskers, and that is the spot. So, I mean, if you could, that's 1, 2, 3 prominent spots there. And if we go across to the other side, again, there's the last line. So we don't count these spots up here that are a different angle. We just count these ones that are right above that last line of whiskers, and that's also it's a 3. So he's a 3-3 spot pattern. We're gonna move a little bit so we can change the angle, see if we can get a shot of that very sweet face while he sleeps. Blair from British Columbia. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Blair. Blair's got a question. He'd like to know, does SIndile's father help at all with the rearing of the cub? Not in the traditional sense, Blair. And it's very difficult to know who exactly the father is. It could be one of probably 4 different male leopards that his mother would have mated with. But what the dominant male in this area, which is Tingana, what he does is he keeps other male leopards out of this area, and if that male leopard had not mated with his mother, they would kill this cub. So that's how the males aid in sort of parenting. They protect the territory from other male leopards that would kill the cub to make the female go into estrus so they could mate with her, and that would produce an offspring that was sired by them. Well, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to sit here with SIndile. Hopefully something interesting might happen, or Shadow might come back, or he might decide to start chasing something. In the meantime, we're going to cross across to Commander Bond, see what he's been up to this morning, and we'll be back with you and with SIndile a little later.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Jiga. Scott and I, in our very manly way, have changed the tyre like mechanics, and we're now moving towards Buffel's Hook Waterhole, where we're hoping to find a great plethora of animals, teeming herds, but we'll see. It is quite a chilly morning, and so whether there's anything thirsty or not, I'm not sure. I hope you've been enjoying the leopard with Brent. That's very exciting. I'm very glad that they found SIndile again. We have not seen anything other than our hard labour since we last saw you. Here we are at the waterhole. There appears to be one hippopotamus. There he is. And a blacksmith lapwing. That old hippo is a very welcome guarantee at this waterhole. He seems to be here most of the time, which is great for us. Possibly not so great for him. He's probably a bit lonely. Poor fella. So on a cold morning like this, not a lot will probably come down to drink until it's a bit later in the day. It's still pretty chilly, despite the sort of fact that the sun has come up and is now warming our faces when we're not moving. A hippo, of course, has a very sorry, excuse me one second. A hippo has a very thick layer of blubber around it, a bit like a whale might, to insulate it. It's not an easy thing maintaining sort of 37 degrees Celsius, or I think that's 98 Fahrenheit in the body if you're going to live in cold water. And so animals have developed incredible mechanisms for doing that, and more, not so much here because the hippo is the only animal that really needs to do it. But up in northern climes, polar bears, and I mean, if you think of walrus and those animals that live in the Arctic, mammals that live in the Arctic that swim about in freezing cold water all day long and manage to maintain some form of body temperature, is absolutely astonishing. I've yet to see this one out of the water. I think he's quite a nervous fellow, so he doesn't spend much time sunbathing. Right, I don't think we're going to hang around here for too long. We're going to carry on, see if we can pick up some tracks. At the moment, there seems to be not much going on tracks-wise, especially lion tracks-wise, which is what we were looking for earlier. So we're going to continue along, probably up towards the north along the boundary, and just see if those wild dogs didn't come across, and then we'll head down further south into Djuma. If there are any new viewers, welcome to you. We're very, very happy and grateful to have you along. Remember, you can send through any questions you like to #SafariLive or questions at wildearth.tv. They don't have to be questions, they can be comments or requests or whatever it is that you'd like to say to us. We'd love to hear from you. I've got a question question from you. It's a good one. I'm going to answer it as soon as we've got through this little dip where the signal tends to be a little choppy. So stand by. We'll see you the other side. I hope you are still with us. Ramey, you want to know, has a hippo ever charged a vehicle? The answer is yes. I'm sure hippos have charged vehicles. I've never seen it happen myself. Scott, have you ever seen it?
No.
Scott's also not seen it. So hippo have a fearsome reputation, and they do kill more animals, more people in Africa than any other mammal does. The mosquito being having the dubious distinction of killing the most people. But that's only when you get between hippo and the water. They feel extremely vulnerable out of the water, and so if they feel like the safety of their water is being threatened, they will become quite dangerous quite quickly. I've never seen them charge a vehicle though. I mean, I'm sure it's happened maybe once or twice, but I've never seen it. Heading out onto the crest here. It's not too far from where we lost the dogs last night, going north, hopefully looking for a den. And we're going to keep our eyes out on all the termite mounds to see if they haven't perhaps excavated a little spot to stay. I'm assuming with your tongue firmly in your cheek, what percentage of that waterhole you said is hippo dung? 70%? No, not nearly that much. Hippo, they will go to the loo in the water, but they also go to the loo quite a lot out of the water at night. I couldn't begin to guess what percentage of it is made of hippo dung, but given how much drinks out of the waterhole, I'm assuming not as much as it might look like. Hyena den. Scott and I did check it earlier this morning, and there wasn't any activity. We may well wind our way back there. We're at the opposite end of the property now, but we'll try and wind our way back down there and see what we can see a bit later on. We did check it very early this morning before we came to see you, or you came to see us. I'm not sure how it works if you're talking about the internet, but we did check it and there was no activity there. Even the birds seem to be hiding a little bit this afternoon, at least this morning. Drongo.
I'm going for the waxbill.
Okay.
Where is it going?
Scott is just trying to find you a blue waxbill.
I'm on it.
He's on it. There we go. We've got it. Oh, that's actually spectacularly well done. Just behind us, this buddy. These are not easy birds to try and find on a camera. And you've got a great view there of a little thing called a blue waxbill. Tiny little seed-eating bird with a sort of conical bill, like a finch, sort of an African finch, if you like. We do get sort of finch-type birds here, and that's one of them. And then there's a fork-tailed drongo sort of through in the distance there. Fascinating birds, those, because they are so aggressive. Whenever there's an eagle or a vulture or some other bird of prey sitting in a tree, you can be fairly sure that there'll be a vulture nearby mobbing it. So that they fly up and bite them on the head and then disappear off, and fly up and bite them on the head, and they chase the eagles off. There was also a rattling testicular on one of these trees, but trying to film them is not unlike trying to film single atoms. Right. We'll just roll gently on down the hill. Very pleasant, peaceful morning that we have going now. Especially after those elephants. I always feel slightly at peace after elephants. In Arkansas, thank you very much for your question. It's a good one again. You want to know, are there many aardvark or aardvark in the area, ant bears? Probably because we don't see them, and to you they seem quite vulnerable. Joan, there's a leopard here that has killed, I think, 5 aardvark in the last 4 or 5 months. So the answer is yes, there are plenty of aardvark around. We don't see them much because they're deeply nocturnal. So they'll often only come out after sort of 10 o'clock at night. That's in areas where there's predator pressure like there is here. In the places like the Kalahari, you can often go and watch them. You can often go and get them, see them in the afternoons. They'll go out and they'll walk around in broad daylight, and you can view them on foot, and it's really quite special. But they're definitely around here. We find their tracks, and we find their holes and termite mounds where they excavate all the time. We've just got a hornbill there. We're going to have a quick look at. So often find the hornbills sitting at the top of trees. They often feed on the ground, but on mornings like this, they'll sit at the top of trees where they can get as much sun as possible. The little chest feathers puffed out, and trying to trap as much warm air under their down as they can. A great value are the hornbills. They build lovely nests in tree holes which sound very cozy, but if they're not breeding, then they tend to stay out in the open. I'm just going to check what colour the beak is here before I tell you a lie. It's a red-billed hornbill. Confused with the yellow-billed, and not really confused with the grey hornbill, which tends to be a different colour on the body. Right, we'll move gently along, see what other delights the wilderness has to offer us today. For me right now, the warmth of the sun on my back is the greatest delight I felt since we left this morning. And if we look, I'm just going to show you a picture when we get to the top here. If we look behind us, you can see this front moving in. The big bank of grey cloud coming in. Often dissipates when it gets to the low veld, but that's why we're feeling a little bit chilly today. Just get to the top of the hill here and then I'll show you. And there have been apparently a number of questions as to why, if it is so cold, I am not wearing long pants. There are two simple answers to that question. Sorry, Scott, I'm just going to do a 90 degree here. The first one is the most obvious one, and that is that I don't have any. I didn't bring any with me when I came down. There you can see, you can just see the bank of cloud. It's just creating some beautiful polarized light. But the bank of cloud is starting to build up in the east there, and it's coming from the southeast. And it does seem to be dissipating slightly as it comes, but it might come over later this afternoon. And Scott, I don't know if you can, I'm not sure if it'll be seeable or not, but you can see those clouds moving up top, over the top of us. We might be able to get those. Yeah. I also have very hairy legs. Which is why my legs stay relatively warm. And when we say it's cold, you must understand that, I mean, compared with the cold that people at higher latitudes experience, it's really not that bad. We're being a bit, we're not being particularly stoic about it. And that's beautiful. Look at those clouds. Those are those sort of icy cirrus clouds, little sort of crystals of ice moving over the top. It's very beautiful watching a weather pattern like that come up. So while we sit here and contemplate the magnificence of this cold front blowing in over us, and the power that must be driving it, we're going to go across to the inimitable Brent, who is still with the Shadows cub, and we're going to see what he's up to at the moment. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, not much has changed here. We're still sitting with SIndile, and we're hoping he might get up and start playing a little bit, but it doesn't look like it. So we'll spend a few more minutes with him here, and then you guys, you know how this works, but for those of you who don't, you are able to interact with us via email and Twitter. And the email address is questions@wildearth.tv, and just use the hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter. But we've been sitting here for quite a while and he hasn't done anything, so we'll leave it up to you guys to decide whether we should spend some more time with SIndile in his fetal position, or we should move on and see what else we can find on this wonderfully beautiful cold morning here At the moment, I'm on Arathusa Private Game Reserve, and you can let us know whether we should move on or stay, and via email, and the email address is questions@wildearth.tv, or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. I'm just going to reposition the vehicle so we can have a different view for a little bit, and you guys just let me know. From Wisconsin. Liz would like to know if I have any idea what his weight is. Just hang on, Liz, I'll just jump up and go pick him up quickly. No, I'm only playing. Liz, at this age, I'm guessing he probably weighs around 40 kilograms, maybe a little bit less. I'm just going to try see if there's a spot where we can get a slightly better view. I'd guess around 40 to 50 kilograms. Liz, maybe even a little bit less at the moment. I think we might be able to get a view of his face. There we go. Very still, cold morning. Not many birds chirping, but it is warming up quite nicely now. I might start abandoning certain layers. I'm a bit nervous though, so maybe not just yet. And enjoying being able to sit in the sun, basking like a lizard while watching this beautiful young male leopard. Jerry in California. Jerry would like to know, is SIndile close enough to an escape tree if any predators arrived? Most definitely. We can show you, if we pan off to the left here slightly, it doesn't look like much, but there's a little russet bush willow which is very close, almost right in front of us there, and then there's also a nice bigger knobthorn with a bit, if you had a bit more time, off to the right, a nice big knobthorn that he could also possibly escape, depending on the direction of said predators that were moving in. But even though he's fast asleep there, his ears are always moving, and he is conscious of what is happening around him and listening carefully. Christy from Oklahoma. Christy would like to know, would he ever actually go hunting with his mother? He'd probably try if he shouted at. Sometimes, and it also again depends completely on the individual leopards. Some female leopards will take their offspring hunting with them, and then as they go into that sort of final moments of the stalk, they will sort of give them a vocal command that tells them to stay put. But so far we haven't seen Shadow do that, and that's just different leopards do different things. We cannot put a general rule on all leopards, doing the same things. Morning, Georgian in Illinois. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. We're sitting here with SIndile, a young male leopard of about 8.5 months now. Georgian would like to know, at what age are leopards considered sub-adults? Excuse me. Well, I would probably guess when they are independent from their parent, and that, as I said, depends on the individual leopard. They can be independent at as young as 8 months, 9 months old, but generally with male leopards it's about 22 months, and with female leopards a little bit less, probably 16 months, between 14 and 16 months, just depending on the individual. And they reach sexual maturity at about 2.5 to 4 years old, depending on the individual, and that is probably when you could start considering them an adult, even a young adult, so 2.5 to 4 years old. Very big welcome to a new viewer named Gemma. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari with WildEarth and National Geographic Safari Live. Gemma just saying thanks for a spotty cat welcome on her first drive. Well, thanks very much, Gemma. I hope you join us for the Sunset Safari as well. Morning, Ginny from Dallas. Ginny would like to know, if a female leopard mates with 4 different males, do each of the male leopards think that it is their cub? That's the idea, Ginny. It's to confuse them. Any male leopard that might possibly wander into her home range or territory, she will try and mate with, and even sometimes under false estrus, and that is to try convince them that if they do come across cubs of hers in her home range, that they are the father. So that's why it's very difficult to determine who the father of leopard cubs are. We can always have an idea, and in a lot of cases it is the dominant male of the area, but in a lot of cases it's not, and the only way to actually tell for sure would be to take genetic samples from each of the males she mated with and from the cub, and then compare that way, and that's the only way to be sure about who a leopard's dad really is. Heidi from Zurich. Heidi would like to know how many leopards we have in this region. Heidi, we're quite lucky in this region. We have quite a lot of leopards, but also we have a lot of habituated leopards. Habituated is not to get confused with tame. They are still very much wild animals. They are just used to the presence of vehicles. That is habituated. Heidi, let me just work this out. So, in terms of leopards, we see regularly on the female front. The two most regular leopards we see are Karula and Shadow. Shadow is Karula's daughter, and this is her cub. So that's 3: Shadow, Karula, SIndile. We have a dominant male in this area named Tingana, which we see quite regularly. Then across from Juma we have another dominant male called Imvula, which we see quite regularly. And up until recently we used to see Karula's 2 young males, who are about 28 months old now, Quarantine and Kunuma, quite regularly. There's an update on them. They have been seen just to the south of us actually yesterday, and last night Sean saw Kunuma in Little Gowrie, which is the property directly south of Djuma. So they are still within the vicinity. So we're on 7 now, and then we saw another young female leopard, which was the first time for me seeing it recently, right on our eastern boundary, and I think that name was Shavula, and so that's 7. And then another female we have seen here is what was her name? Quatile, but she was moving out of territory to mate with Mvula. But I have seen her again since then at the southern end of the Arathusa airstrip, and then I think Scott's seen Bahuti once. So there's a possibility of about 10 different individuals that we can see, but I would say that we regularly see at the moment is... Actually, at the moment, we're not even seeing Karula very much, so I would say Shadow, SIndile, Tingana, and Mvula at the moment are the most common leopards we see. And so that's 4 that we see very regularly, and that's just been for the last month or so. And that can change very quickly, and we might start seeing other leopards as well. Comfy cat. Well, we're going to do the same as SIndile. We're going to get comfy where we're sitting right here. So the general consensus is that everyone would like us to stay a bit longer, but there's also been some requests to go check the hyena den. But this is the wonderful thing about working in the team, and we've just decided we'll send Commander Bond to check the hyena den. So James is going to go check the hyena den now, so hopefully you guys get some action around there, and we'll stay right here doing the same as SIndile, enjoying the morning sunlight, and we'll be back with you a little later in drive.
Welcome back everyone to Jiga. Scott is just focusing in there on this bank of clouds. Ooh, that noise you can hear is the crowned lapwings that have just been attacked by a gabark goshawk. There he is, he's coming in now. Yeah, it's very difficult to follow. And he's a little sort of predatory accipiter that will come and take birds off the ground or out of trees. He's like a sort of hawk, if you like. But what Scott was focusing on there is this building bank of cloud, which since you last saw us only about 10 minutes ago has built up enormously. So there's a huge front coming through here. My parents, who live down in the Eastern Cape, have been shivering cold and rain for the last 3 days, and I think that's what we're catching the end of now. We're going to head off towards the hyena den, where we can perhaps pick up on some old scavengers basking in the sun. It would be nice, I think, if Brent stays with the leopard cub for now, just in case he moves and does something interesting. It's not going to be a hot day, so it might be worth one of us just hanging around him, and then the other driving about and exploring and seeing what else we can find. First of all, to the old hyena den where Byron showed you the warthogs backing into it yesterday, and see if they haven't reclaimed their home. And then we'll go back to the one we checked earlier this morning. You can see in front of me there the leaden skies. There's something quite awe-inspiring about a leaden sky, especially out here, where we normally normally don't see them this time of year. In South Bend, Indiana. I've not heard of South Bend before. I hope it's a nice place for you to live. I wager not quite as nice as the place we live. But you want to know, if the animals are cold, are they less active? Yes, some are. Some will definitely try and curl up and stay warm. But often the best way for them to stay warm is to stay active. So they'll rush around and eat as much as they can, because they lose heat, obviously. Maintaining heat costs a lot physiologically, so they have to maintain their eating. But certainly some animals will become slightly less active. They'll go into thicker bush, I think, rather than become less active. The birds, when it's cold like this, will sit out on top of the trees or huddle together, fly around to stay warm. So the hyena den is not too far from here. In fact, we'll probably check the new one, or the new old one first, and then check the one where the warthogs were. We're closer to that one. Schön Palan. Sie war man dann beton zamin. Ami wonang in home. Okay. Da wonan. Oh, okay. So those fellows have seen some hyena tracks only, nothing else. I was hoping maybe they'd seen a few cat tracks, but not. Be able to see from where you're sitting now, the light is starting to fade a bit as this bank comes blasting over us. I hate to think how cold it must be up there. Definite sense of anticipation about the bush this morning. I'm not sure why. Came very early this morning, just before we saw you, and we're now arriving at the hyena den.
I'm seeing the picture flashing on and off on my picture. Yeah, James, just to let you know.
Virginia Beach. Welcome and thank you for your question. You'd like to know what birds do I look most forward to seeing. I think, well, it depends on the day really. I love the colors of things like a green-backed pytilia or green-winged pytilia, which is sort of red and green, little finch-like bird. And it's always impressive to see things like a batelier in full flight, or even a big vulture in full flight, soaring high above everything else. So it just depends how I'm feeling. I've always found tremendous peace from watching sort of in the midday heat, from lying down on the ground and feeling the grass underneath me. And then, so there are no hyenas here at the moment, so we'll check the other den site. And lying down and feeling the grass underneath me and enjoying the fresh air. and then watching vultures way up high, so high that I can't even tell what kind of vultures they are. Just floating on the thermals. That's always given me a tremendous sense of peace. So there are no hyenas here. We'll pop along to the other den that was usurped the other day by the warthogs. And if they aren't there are two options. One is that they've moved the den.
Giving major problems on my screen now.
And the other is that they have decided that the cubs are old enough for them not to need a den anymore. So they may have just moved on. But we'll go and see. An astonishingly blue sky as we travel along. We might be going through some signal difficulties here, so if you lose us, we're very sorry about that. We're still at the infancy of understanding exactly how the weather and the solar flares and the space debris are able to affect our transmissions to you over the vastness of space. Some hyena tracks around here. How are you doing, Scott?
I can see the monitors found, but my screen's very fuzzy, black and white, Blair Witch Project.
Get a picture if we can. Scotty, can you get that orchid? Yeah. So what you're hearing now is a beautiful bird called the black-headed Oriole. It's a green bird, not a green bird at all, it's a yellow bird. And that Scott is focusing on now is called a leopard orchid. Now the leopard orchid, it's quite an important orchid to me because there is a very important traditional use. And given my current state of singleness, what I need to do is to go and climb that tree, probably not now because I'll just embarrass myself. Pick a few of the stalks, and apparently what you then do is to chew them in the light of the full moon and say the name of the one you want, and she will immediately begin to think of you. I have to confess that the orchids of this area have taken a bit of a hammering since my arrival, as I have attempted to make the traditional use work. As of yet, I am unsold on the idea because I remain in a state of celibate singleness, and that is just how it is out here in the wild. But I shall keep trying to eat the leopard orchid, Ancilia gigantica is what it's called, and mostly I think you possibly have to wait till it flowers before the traditional use will work, and that'll come sort of at Christmas time, just before Christmas, which is really nice to see. Beautiful yellow flowers with brown spots on them, and that's why it's called the leopard orchid. And I'm afraid the Oriole has flown off. I did see him scudding by, but I will show you a picture of him. Oriole 320. We get 3 Oriole species here, but only one of them at this time of the year. The other 2 migrate. So there they are. And this chap here with his black head is the black-headed Oriole. The most beautiful one to me is the African golden Oriole there. And he's just this incredible flash of gold and yellow. Beautiful, beautiful bird when we see him. And the Eurasian golden Oriole is most easily identified by those black wings as he flies over. Flash of gold and black. The black-headed is the most common, and here all the time. Very nice, beautiful liquid call. That was an appalling rendition of an Oriole call. I'll have to work on my Oriole call for you. California, thank you for your question about shoebills and whether we find them in this area. John, or large shoebills. We don't find large or small shoebills here. They're found mainly in sort of Zambia and north of that, as far as I'm aware. So we don't find them here. Closer to sort of the Central Africa, I'm afraid. I don't think we even have anything that's related to a shoebill here. The troubles on our vehicle continue to happen as Scott has now leapt off the back of the car to try and reattach the aerial, which I managed to bash off. So we're a tyre down, most of an aerial down. Scott can barely see a picture. Such is the life of live broadcast out of the African wilderness. We can't really pop down to the shops for some new parts. Light on the lilac-breasted roller there. John in California, you want to know if these Orioles are related to the Baltimore Orioles. Are they not a sports team? I know there's a sports team somewhere in the United States called the Orioles. I'm not sure what sport they play. So the answer is no. I think you get some form of bird in the States called an Oriole as well. They may be loosely related. It's unlikely that they're too closely related, though, given the separation of the Atlantic. So were we in South America, for example, and looking at Orioles, the chances of them being related to others in North America would be that much stronger. So sometimes what happens is that we give similar names to things because they look quite similar, but they don't necessarily have any biological relationship. Twitter, you want to know if that Ancelia or orchid is part of the tree. No, it's not. It's called an epiphyte, which means that it lives on the tree, but doesn't have any real effect on it. So it doesn't seem to denude the tree of nutrients at all. Apparently they can live almost entirely off the air to start with, and then they create like a basket where they collect dead leaves and plants and water, and that's how they survive. So they're not part of the tree, they're just kind of living on it. So an epiphyte is a kind of a symbiotic relationship or mutualistic relationship where they don't actually affect each other. On Twitter, thank you for your comment, but you're suggesting that perhaps my methods with the Ancelia or orchid are not correct, and that I should be giving it to her rather than eating it in the light of the full moon while dancing around in a circle. Remay, I think you might actually have a point. So when it flowers, I might do that. I think if I were to hand her a couple of canes from they're called canes, the branches from the orchid, if I were to hand her a couple of smelly canes, I don't think she'd be particularly impressed. So we're now heading towards that hyena den, the old one that was usurped by the pigs. Scott is back on the vehicle, which is a great encouragement to me. And I'm not seeing any hyenas. Maybe inside, curled up, they may be elsewhere. I'm not seeing them here, I'm afraid. Nor am I seeing any pigs. Nor am I seeing any fresh hyena tracks. Just drive around here briefly. Are absent without our leave. So I've had some wonderful feedback from Marianne, and you say that you do, I think you've sent a picture of an Oriole, which you get in your garden, and I think Anne also. So that's from California and from Arkansas. We've got Orioles, so thank you very much for that. And we're going to cross over to Brent and see how he's doing with SIndile, and we'll be back with you shortly, I'm sure.
Welcome back. As you can see, he's still enjoying siesta. He just picked his head up there and we heard a rattling testicular calling, just making sure there was nothing untoward on the way. And the sun's gone a little bit, so he's getting a bit cold and curling up again into that very cute position. So just a quick update if you guys have signed in late, or you might possibly be a new viewer with us here at Safari Live. You are sitting on the back of my game drive vehicle watching a young male leopard named SIndile and on Arathusa Private Game Reserve, which is part of the Sabi Sands Reserve, which is then part of the Greater Kruger National Park, a mass of unfenced area where animals are able to roam and fulfill out their natural obligations. We've spent quite a lot of this morning tracking this young male in the beginning, and since he's been found, we've been sitting here. So we are live. You are seeing this male leopard at the exact same time as we are. We also are interactive, so you can ask us questions about this leopard or about the bush that surrounds us, and you can do that by emailing questions@wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. It has been a bitterly cold morning, and the sun seems to have disappeared as this cold front is moving on. The sun was so nice earlier, I actually took off my jacket, but I didn't last very long before I popped it straight back on. Oh, a little yawn. You can see he looks a little bit less comfortable now that the sun's disappeared, which might prompt him to move, you never know. But he will definitely stay in this area. He's been left here by his mother while his mother's gone out hunting, and she could return in the next 10 minutes. She could return in 2 days' time, and so that is quite common behavior for leopards, to leave the youngsters while they are out hunting, because at this age he's more of a hindrance than a help. Trying to get that comfy spot. Hi Lulu, welcome on Sunrise Safari. Lulu would like to know, can he sleep in trees? Most definitely, Lulu, but a lot of leopards prefer to sleep on the ground. It's more comfortable. They will only generally sleep in a tree if they have a kill in the tree, or if they're feeling pressure from other predators like hyenas and lions or wild dogs. Deer would like to know, in domestic cats, it is possible for a female cat to be impregnated by 2 different males and have kittens in the same litter from different individuals, and she would like to know if this is possible in the bigger cats. As far as I know, that doesn't happen in leopard, but I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But in lions, it does happen. You can have different fathers in the same litter. But I'm not 100% sure on leopards. I'll just have a quick look in my mammal Bible. But as far as I know, it is not a thing that happens in leopards. So I don't have anything in my big book, so maybe you guys can check for me. Is it possible for a leopard offspring to have two different fathers in the same litter? You can send your answers to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. So apparently you guys are getting some wonderful screenshots. I'm very happy. It has been quite a beautiful sighting, especially a little bit earlier when we had that wonderful morning light. Yeah, there's been a bit of banter in the Twitter sphere regarding a little competition. James, Commander Bond, Henry, and myself had a few days ago. We had a bird competition to see which vehicle could identify the most bird species during a drive. And when we mean identify, we had to actually be able to show them on camera so you guys could actually get a good look at them, not us identifying calls and whatnot. We actually had to physically show the birds on camera. Oh, stretching. And at the end of that, I won, of course, thank you. But James came a bit short, and we happened to be very close by towards the end of drive, so we decided we should gloat a little bit. And as James described, I sat in the vehicle next to him smiling like a Cheshire cat. James then decided he wasn't going to be able to cook breakfast for me that morning, or even stomach his own breakfast, and so people are wondering whether he did cook breakfast. He didn't cook breakfast. James has very similar eating habits to the birds, and he tends to eat seeds and whatnot for breakfast, whereas I lean far towards a good solid fry up. But he did cook us dinner a night or two ago, and fortunately there was no bark in the dinner. I think that is solely because he had to cook for all of us. If it had just been me, I would have been far more cautious. I think he might have come up with something a bit worse than bark. There's lots of trees here that are natural laxatives, and James does know his trees very well, so I do keep an eye on what he gives me. Thanks for another question, this Sunrise Safari Reme. Reme is wondering if anyone was able to track Tingana after he was seen by Byron yesterday morning. Well, Reme, unfortunately not. Scott did walk that whole drainage line yesterday trying to find him without any luck, and then Scott and I were going back in that area to try to see if we could find tracks, and we got that panicked call over the radio of wild dogs, and I'm afraid with me behind the wheel there was little chance of us looking for a leopard with wild dogs on the property. So then Scott and I rushed off to go see if we could find the wild dogs and help James stay with them in case they veered off. So no one was able to find Tingani yesterday. Nearby where I found the tracks of Shadow and SIndile, there were tracks of an adult male heading south, and that could possibly have been Tingana, but we didn't follow up on those tracks as the female and Shadow and SIndile's tracks were more fresh from this morning as opposed to those from the male, which were probably from last night at some point. This weather is looking slightly foreboding. If you want to have a look at the clouds, and you can see how this cold front is setting in. I'm just going to get Phil to have a look. The clouds are setting in above us, but there are some gaps still above us. But if we look further to our west, we can see there's a blue sky, quite a long way off now, and we were sitting under that wonderful blue sky, but now it has left us, and there you can see that cold front moving to the west. Hi, Gemma. Thanks again for the question. Gemma is one of our new viewers, so always exciting to have new viewers. We love having new viewers as much as we love all our old viewers, our regulars. Gemma would like to know, with this cold front coming in, is it possibly going to bring some rain, and how much water is around? Gemma, it's unlikely, looking at this cold front, that it's going to bring any rain. We are very much a summer rainfall area. Not to say that we don't occasionally get the odd winter rain, but I don't think this is going to bring any rain. It's quite high, and I don't feel that much moisture in the air. But in terms of water, the water is drying up quite quickly. We are sort of, what are we now, June, so we're in the middle of our dry season, and it's going to keep getting drier from now, and quite a lot of the water is going to dry up. And from a game viewing point of view, that's quite good for us, because it makes the animals far more centralized on the remaining water points. So, and also that forces a lot of the prey species to drink there, so the predators also gravitate towards the remaining water, which from a pure game viewing point of view is wonderful. It makes the animals a lot easier for us to find. But I don't think there's going to be any rain. But thanks for the question. This young leopard is still a very much flat cat, so we're going to cross over to Commander Bond, see what he's been up to, and we'll be back with you a little bit later.
Welcome back to Giga, everyone. We have checked another 2 places where the hyenas might be. They were not there. So we've come now to the Waterhole, Gowrie Waterhole, to see if we can't find some form of mammal life. We did see some monkeys running across the end of the dam wall, so we're going to go and see if we can see them. We've also apparently, one of our observant zoomies saw some nyala, but they seem to have disappeared into the bush. Selfish things are the nyala. The monkeys were just at the end of the wall here. I find them tremendously entertaining to watch, so we'll see if we can't find them. There goes the monkey. There's a little monkey. Oh, he's going at such speed. Hang on a sec. I think he's a little one that got left behind. There we go. A little chap in the knobthorn here. Shall I go back, Scott? That's perfect. There we go. They're sitting in the knobthorn tree now. I just cannot imagine how they climb a tree like this. I mean, for us to put our hands... I mean, the trunks are not that unsmooth, I suppose, but the thorns that we'd get caught in if we tried to climb them. So, while we're looking at these monkeys, I just want to tell you and apologize for our technical difficulties. Scott is normally an extremely competent cameraman, but he's currently looking at a screen that looks as if it's taken an LSD trip. So he's struggling to focus and zooming quite quickly because of that. Sorry about that. Now, the vervet monkey is one of only 2 monkey species we get in South Africa, the other being something called a Somango monkey, which tends to live more in forested areas than it does in the savannah. And in terms of primates, we also have the galagos or bush babies, and that's it for southern Africa. But there are far more monkeys as we move up into East Africa with all the colobus monkeys and various others, and the mangabes, I think they're in Ethiopia, which are like baboons. Baboons, of course, we have here too. And there are a whole lot more coming here. And then, of course, into the rainforest, we have our closest relatives, the chimpanzees, the bonobos, and the great gorillas. And these vervets live in sort of very closely knit troops, dominated by a big male. And the babies will find that it's almost like watching children at or teenagers at a school when you look at them. They establish a very definite social hierarchy that's based quite largely on bullying and physical prowess. But there is an element of sort of thoughtful manipulation about it, not quite like it is with the chimpanzees, but you can sort of see, if you watch them closely enough, you can see the machinations of their social thinking. Quite similar to a baboon troop in many ways. And they easily become a menace in tourism if people start to feed them. So they're very afraid of people as long as we stop feeding them. That's beautiful. We've got a lovely question from Ramey, who was on drive with Scott the other day when he found a single baboon on quarantine clearings. Ramey, the baboon hasn't been seen again as far as I'm aware. Probably a young male. Scott, was it a male?
Yeah.
So a young male that has been excluded from his troop because he's probably got to the age where he needs to go and find another troop. So he will now go and find another troop and hang on the fringes of it until he becomes tolerated, and then he will join that troop, and with any luck for him, he'll become a big strong baboon one day and perhaps dominate the troop. These monkeys are very peaceful, and you can see them now starting to do a bit of allo grooming, helping each other. In fact, I think she's suckling. Is she suckling?
I can't can't see anything. I can't even see if I'm in focus.
All Scott can see is psychedelic colours, which of course these monkeys are not. No, that's very sweet. They're just sort of sitting there, huddling against the cold, on a branch that you and I wouldn't touch with our hands, let alone put our soft bottoms on. So they've been having their breakfast. The mother is the female. He's definitely suckling there. That's wonderful. Looks a bit big for that though. Often spend time with monkeys like this, you know. Especially from the lodges, you know, we used to see them in the camps all the time. They became a total menace because people, despite endless instructions not to feed them, would hand them bits of muffin or biscuit or eggs or fruit or whatever it was, and suddenly find themselves with 2 neat puncture marks in their hands. But out here, where that doesn't happen, they really are very fascinating to watch, and it's so interesting to me how the closer you get to human beings, so the closer you get to the chimpanzee, the more like human beings they actually behave. They're tremendously fearful of us until they learn that we're slower than them, not quite as strong as them, and especially when they learn that we're actually quite afraid of them, then they become quite menacing. The vervet monkey occurs almost throughout South Africa, except in the desert regions. And in Durban, for example, which is, a major city on the east coast of South Africa, they occur right into the suburbs. So we're just about to cross over back to the inimitable and excitable Brent Leo Smith. Thank you very much for being with us today. It's been, I think, an absolutely beautiful drive. A chilly drive. We're still dressed in our winter woolies, Scott and I, and there's wonderful elephants in that golden dawn light, which is really spectacular to see. We've just had some great scenery and some great peace, and it's been a real privilege answering your questions and having your comments, so thank you very much for them. We're going to cross over to Brent for the last little while, and you can enjoy that sleeping leopard and his golden pelage, while Scott and I make our way home for a bit of breakfast. I believe Brent was insulting my breakfast the other day. He said that I didn't cook him breakfast. I did offer him some of my seeds and nuts and goji berry mix, but that he turned his nose up to it, I feel is his problem. So I'm going to ask him to do better today. So we'll cross over to him. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Scott on the camera, Nikki and Eugene in the control room, and we'll see you later this afternoon.
Welcome back, everyone. We've tried to reposition to get a slightly better view of this flat cat, and all we're getting is an ear, and that's really cool because we can actually see how that ear moves now. So it just zoomed, it sort of panned around to listen to that rattling testicular, and obviously he's conscious of all the different noises around him. There you see it move, working like a sort of radar dish, picking up different sounds. Let's see if we move a little bit forward, maybe we can see a bit more of his face. So, been sitting up for the last few minutes to drive. Thanks very much, SIndile. Very kind of you. It's been a wonderful morning. Nice tracking in that really fresh early morning. Nice with the dust. The tracks are standing out quite nicely, and we've been lucky enough to spend the majority of the morning with this wonderful young male leopard, SIndile. And he hasn't done much, sat on a termite mound for the whole time we've been here, but still wonderful to be able to spend as much time as we do with these animals. Phil and myself have thoroughly enjoyed being out, and I know you guys would have had fun with James and Scott. And yes, I hear James was chatting about his birdseed. I'm afraid I'm going to leave the birdseed to James. I'm definitely going to go for more of the bacon and egg for breakfast, especially on a cold morning like this. And it's been great having you guys on the Sunrise Safari. It's been an absolute privilege to be able to share our love and passion for the African wildlife with you. So I'm going to say goodbye, and then for the last little bit we'll go back onto the young leopard, because I'm sure you'd much rather look at him than at me. Guys, thanks very much. Have a wonderful day or morning or evening wherever you are in the world, and hopefully you join us for the sunset safari, and we'll be out hopefully on the tracks of big cats again. I'm pretty sure I'm going to come have a look again for this young guy. Maybe Shadow has come back. So for the last few seconds we're going to have a look at that young male leopard sitting on the termite mound.